Welcome, guitar nerds. I'm super excited about this interview. This is Sean Aumack. Sean Aumack comes to me through Jeff Gibble, a mutual friend, and this is one of your mentors.
Yes, sir.
Jeff Gibble is a teacher out of State College, and he's big in this We Love Guitar Nerds community. You've seen him multiple times, and you will see him multiple times in the future. So anyway, welcome, Sean. Okay,
Thank
so
you.
now the thing I was really excited about with Sean is because he's got all the musical stuff that a lifetime musician, he never gave up. But also he had the side thing of education. And anybody who knows me knows that I have a passion for music and I have a passion for education. So we're going to talk about all of that today. So, so Sean, where did you begin with music?
All right. I grew up in northern New Jersey and right across from Manhattan in Bayonne. I went to high school in Jersey City. I started playing guitar. I was 12 years old. It was the mid 80s. So, guitar was very big. Every single friend that I had played guitar. Yep. I went over a friend's house and he had a guitar and amp. And the amp would, had the distortion button on it that they all had back then. And I held this like feeding back the store to guitar. And I went, this is it for me. Thank you. I'll take one of those, please. And that was that. And I've just never quit. Things come, things go. I've played the whole time.
Yeah. So when you started out, what were you listening to music-wise?
The metal, right? Yeah. I'll be honest with you. It was, for a while, it got like ridiculous, and then I kind of had an epiphany one day that if I was going to continue to do this into adulthood, that I should probably try to diversify a bit and, do some other things as well. So, I went from, and I still love some of that stuff from when I was a kid. My first concert was Judas Priest, which wasn't that heavy, but then after that, we got progressively darker and more bizarre. So I still love Anthrax. I love all those. I love all the band. There was one band from England called Raven. That was my favorite band. Loved Raven. They used to come and stay in my hometown. So I would go down the main drag and they'd be hanging out because we had like a big metal scene in my town at the time. So and they were more like a hard rock band, but they were great to me.
Raven was like, that was a link between thrash and metal, school metal, rock, and thrash. So that's the thing. One of the things that we think about, because we're lifetime musicians, like a lot of guys are like, with the way they are, is like, well, I'm growing up. I'm going to denounce everything that I grew up on, and that I'm going to denounce everything that has gotten me here. And that's not where my head is at.
Not me.
Yeah, my well is it draws from many different streams.
I like everything.
A better way to be for me.
Mm-hmm. I still like all that stuff. I'll throw on some Slayer once in a while, or like the crazy German stuff like Destruction or whatever. And it's not an everyday listen by any stretch, but it's in there.
Yeah.
And
Raven is actually Raven came out with a compilation album. That's actually my lawn mowing album.
That's fantastic.
That gets the lawn done really quick.
They were a great band to me, and it just, that was what sucked me in and drew me in and really made me want to play. And they're still around as well. I saw them on. They have a page on Facebook and Instagram and stuff. So they just put an album out. I need to check it out.
Yep. So did you have any? Were you mostly self-taught, or did you? What is like in New Jersey? What was the guitar teachers like in New Jersey?
Well, we had a great local music store, and I went there, and even as an adult, I didn't live in town anymore. I'd go back to hang out. The guy's name was Lou Fanicone, and he was like the dad for all of us, the musical dad that would sell, don't buy this, buy this, and even if he didn't sell it, or he was just a great guy.
Yeah.
So we would hang out, and he gave lessons there, sold guitars, drums, basses, all that, and there was lessons there. So I took about a year lessons there, I guess. And, stupidly decided that I was going to go home and do this myself. And I didn't need anybody else. And I didn't want to learn how to read or any of that. And I was just going to figure out metal tunes and be happy. So that's what I did for a while.
Did you fear music theory back then?
I didn't understand it. I wasn't great at math as a kid. So like I got that I got that math feeling with music theory a lot. So, I learned everything I think that I need to learn to function. So, I know my stuff. My reading is still terrible. I mean, if you give me some money and tell me I got to read this, I'll figure it out. Mm-hmm. But, just on my own, I'd much rather listen to something and learn it rather than try and read a chart.
Yeah. So when did you start playing with other people?
Pretty much immediately. There was a kid that was a drummer, and so we put a little band together. Sometimes we didn't have a bass player; we have 2 guitar players. So and then I got into a band with another kid. So I've had constant bands the whole time, and I stupidly never wore hearing protection for many years. So I have that nice high E that I can tune to all the time. It's always playing for me. So. Wear your hearing protection, kids. get your earplugs. So, but I've been playing the whole time, and I've in bands, and it's kind of nice because I came up at the tail end of the old way of doing things, where you could still wheel in as big of an amp as you want and play as loud as you want, and no one gave you a hard time. And as I'm sure those days are past. You can't do that anymore. So I've kind of have seen the old way of doing things, the new way of doing things, and it's been interesting for sure. You have to be able to change.
Yeah. So back then it was you were strictly metal. So then
pretty much.
And then you diversify as you got older.
Zeppelin was the thing for me, the catalyst for like trying to head into other things, and then like Pink Floyd. But Zeppelin was the thing that kind of sent me on that blues way. Like, you listen to Zeppelin, you're like, whoa, what is this? And then, you go like, they're like, oh, they stole those songs from this guy, and this guy. And then you go and listen to that. And,
one is like 3/4 of Led Zeppelin 1 is Willie Dixon, whether they
So, that sent me on the path down to that. And I was on a blues kick for many years. Like, so after that, after I got out of school I played while I was in York too, a bunch. I was in a straight up blues band for a long time, and that's a hard sell. I'm sorry?
That the Detonators?
That was the Detonators. Started as a blues band, straight up blues, like nothing but blues. You get 4 hours of blues, buddy, if you booked us.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, Rod, that's a tough sell.
Yeah.
To work constantly, because that was also my thing that I like playing. That's my laboratory where I can go.
New Jersey, you didn't have a lot of clubs that supported a strict blues kind of diet.
There were some, and they've kind of all gone away. There were more in the 90s. You could kind of do that a lot more in the 90s, but now you can't. There's not hardly anything.
Yeah.
I used to play in the city a lot. There was straight blues places that you could get away with that in the city, Manhattan. You could go and do that. There was not a problem. And then, after a while, we're like, well, let's start adding some other kind of stuff in, and we went from there. So.
Okay. So then you graduate from high school, then you move to York. You go to York because you went to York College. Is that right?
Yes, sir. So let me tell you how York College was in the late 80s.
Please tell me.
York College was made the Rolling Stone top 10 party school list of 1988, late 1988. I get there in 1989, and it was insane. And I kind of thought, this is college. This is the way college is. And I realized after I got out of college that no, not everybody had the same experiences that I did. So looking back now, I can see that it was just a mixture of the standard to get in wasn't that great, and the supervision was really poor. And it was just made for for me, when I got there, it was like Christmas and Disneyland all mixed into one every day. So it was off the hook. Let me just put it that way.
You learn a lot about alcohol there.
I learned a lot about a lot of things.
None of which we can talk about here.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to speak about them, but I learned my lessons. We'll say it that way. And I got out in 4 years, and I got out in one piece. Well, which is great. I made it. So, and I didn't major in education while I was there. I majored in psychology, which was also not the smartest move I've ever made, but I'm glad I did it because I did learn a lot with that.
Yeah.
So after I got out and after I left York, I couldn't get a job in psych. That's really how I started going down the education path because, someone took me on the side and was like, look, if you're going to do this, you need to go get a doctorate and start now. And I wasn't interested in that at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Another what?
So, but backing up to York, it was crazy in the 80s. And that's where I met Jeff.
Jeff Gibble.
Jeff Gibble and Eric Snyder. And Eric became, like a good friend that taught me a lot of stuff as well as Jeff. So, we
were talking about him before. It's like Eric Snyder. For those of you who don't know me, it's like some of the first times I've ever played in public with bands. A band. Well, I won't even say bands. It was a York College thing when I was still in high school, and this was 1987, spring of '87, and it was with Eric Snyder, and we did. I remember we did. Something by Triumph, and I remember we did Ode to Joy Rockin', which I still teach, the Rockin' like the rainbow version of it. And then, so Eric Snyder he's no longer with us. He's an extremely gifted vocalist, keyboard player, and extreme funny smartass.
What a smart guy. The guy was just like brilliantly smart.
That, yes, ridiculously smart, and it's like we miss him, and but he's a complex character because it's like he is completely a character. So he was anyway.
Yeah, he was. So I met him and Jeff the same night at a house party in York on Jackson Street in a fraternity house, and I was wearing a shirt from the music store in my town, and they came up and struck up a conversation, and told me that Jeff teaches guitar. And Jeff that night dropped the biggest revelation about learning and teaching on me that I didn't even get in grad school when I got certified to teach, which was I said to him, well, what can you teach me? And he looked at me and said, I can't teach you anything. You have to teach yourself. I'll just give you some stuff to think about. Yes. So I had come from a Catholic high school with priests, like rah, 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 talking down to you, calling you an idiot, things like that. So this guy I was like, whoa, this really gave me something to go think about. So, Jeff, I took some lessons from Jeff later on, and unfortunately, way too short of a time. But his teaching style was great, and his playing ability was, oh my Lord. So he was the first guy for me that I sat. He introduced me to Eric Johnson stuff. And he was playing Cliffs of Dover, it came out and he's playing it in a bar 2 weeks later.
I've known Jeff since early to mid '80s. Jeff had Cliffs of Dover years before everyone else did. Yeah. Because that song, I think they played it on the Austin City Limits. Mm-hmm. And I know we all watched that and we all knew about the song, and it may have made its way into a guitar magazine before it made it into Eric Johnson recorded his Tones album.
It did. It was on one of those, remember those sound page things? We're really dating ourselves now. So, you would your sound page. So that was a sound page. So I had heard it too, but I had never seen anybody play that. And I had never seen anyone have a Marshall for a dirty tone and a clean and a twin for clean, and he had it all going on, and he was the first guy that I ever got to sit and watch that was playing at that level, and I could watch him kind of often. So I saw them whenever I was able to.
What band was this?
I think it was Alaska.
Okay. Wow. Alaska went that far back.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, my favorite Eric and Jeff story was, is the Depot still there? Was it Brooklyn Alley Depot?
Yeah.
All right, so
I don't know. I have lots of changes.
I haven't been there in a very long time.
I think they got rid of their liquor license. which I don't understand how that's going to work, but whatever.
They used to have something called Rolling Rock Night.
Mm-hmm.
You tell me if this sounds like a good idea. 25-cent pony bottles, which were glass, of Rolling Rock, and you could buy them by the bucket full. No cover to get in, no nothing. So it's just broken glass, people throwing beer on one another, girls that are cut, somebody's crying over in the corner, and Alaska's playing, and they are covered in garbage bags with their arms sticking out of them. And Jeff goes to start, I forget what it was, and someone throws a beer that soaks him and his guitar. And Jeff is a pretty like laid back kind of guy, but that's the only time I've ever saw him like freak out and start yelling at people. And it was the only time that I've ever seen a cloud form inside too. It was a unique night, Rolling Rock Night.
Right.
I got out of it without stitches, thankfully.
Did you say crowd or?
Oh, it was mobbed. It was mobbed.
Yeah. They, at a certain point, that place was huge. That was York's place.
Mm-hmm.
All the great bands would come there in York. Okay, that was like that. We get the Baltimore bands, we would get the Philly bands, even anybody came regionally. That was the place. Now they don't do that anymore.
I saw live there before they were live. They were public affection.
Yeah.
I saw them at the Depot, I think, before they were live. So yeah, so it was I played there many times, like on a Wednesday or something. That started me on my path of.
And while you're still in York?
Yeah, I was playing in something, and I used to play with Eric before I could get in. Eric Snyder would say, "Meet me at the side door at this place. Be here at 9 o'clock and just have a guitar with you." So I would go in and play. He would sneak me into bars when I was underage, and I'd play with them and do things that I'm not supposed to do when I'm underage. So it was Eric was really instrumental in getting me started on stuff. And Eric, he had his way about him where he would abuse you yet love you at the same time. So you would, and that's also started me on the, hey, you don't know this tune, but you're going to play it right now kind of thing, and you have to suss out changes on the spot.
Yeah. Which is
then
all I do.
Yeah, he would let you know when you did a good job, and he would let you know if you did a bad job.
Yeah.
In his own way. And so it was a very good time, and it was a lot of learning for me back then. I learned a lot. A lot.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So when you get out of, I guess, York College, you get into some with the Detonators, and then you have Skeleton Key, and then Off the Grid. These are all the ones over the years that you've stayed in a band consistently with some of the same people in different formats and different some of the different music. But
there's been a million bands that have come and go. The Detonators have been going since '95, and those other two are still going as well, pre-pandemic. So I was running 3 up until my last gig with a band was March 13th, 2020, and then the next day, and I was booked for the whole year. So pretty much every weekend, and then weeknight stuff crops up. Yeah.
Okay, she's a saint.
Yes, she is.
Yeah. So, bless your wife.
Well, I do what I'm supposed to do when I'm home. So I have 2 kids. So
you have 2 kids.
This is what I do. I am a lifer at this.
Yeah. Not everyone can handle that. Yeah. And that's like I say that with a lot of experience.
Yes. So no, not everybody. It's I try not to let one world overlap the other. So, and as we all know, there's a lot of pitfalls and traps with playing that you got to try to avoid, and you're there to work.
Yep, which we're going to talk about very shortly. Your musical scene and where you grew up, where you landed. When you live in East Rutherford, New Jersey, right now, so that is like right outside of the Lincoln Tunnel.
Yep. I'm right outside the Lincoln Tunnel, right next to Manhattan.
Yeah.
I don't get to the city that often. I played in the city quite a bit pre 9/11, And like after 9/11, everything kind of just fell apart, and everything changed. So after that, it's not cheap. You know, people are like, oh, you live right next to Manhattan. Well, yeah, I do. It's $20 to go through the tunnel, depending on what time of day. Then you got to park when you get there. So it's not to gig there. Like you have to make something, like otherwise it's a money losing proposition, which it's fun to play over there once in a while, but it's not something that I want to do all the time.
Yeah.
Before 9/11, I was actually making money playing over there, which was cool. But that all ended. That all poof, gone, you know. So that kind of fell off. You know, plus I realized that over there, if you're gonna, like, I was the total Jersey guy showing up with his own amp and stuff, you know. That's not a thing. You know, the local guys that live over there, you know, Animal House, when they're like, we're willing to sacrifice looks for a certain morally casual attitude. Well, people that live there are willing to sacrifice what they sound like so they can carry it, or they just use the house, you know, equipment, which is always
that's a New York thing. I'm like, one of the things I do is drum also. And I hear New York drummers, they don't ever put wing nuts on their cymbals. Okay, and if they can play the house drums, they always choose that option.
Mhm.
That's a regional thing.
Well, there's nowhere you can't park there. If you're gonna drive, like everyone, if you live over there, you're going by cab, by train, by foot, whatever it is. So you'll see somebody with a cart with a little, like back then, like Blues Cubes that just came out.
Yeah.
You know, they weren't that great yet. People were using those. This is before direct boxes. I guess Sans amps were out, but it was before any of your stuff that you have now that you can plug right into the front of the house and sound okay. This is before all that. So I had a couple experiences where they're like, look, you have to use the house stuff. Don't bring your own things. It's mandatory house equipment. Then you get there and there's no guitar amp. I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do? Well, it's only one set. You plug right into the PA. And I'm like, really? Like, for real? And yes, for real. So, you know, once that happens a couple times, you're like, yeah, no, I'll bring my own thing, and I'll get in trouble if that's the case. So, you know, it's just a completely different deal over there. But I played, you know, a lot of different places. I played on Bleecker Street regular. I played the 55 bar a couple times, which I don't know how I pulled that off.
Now,
but
explain to me Bleecker Street.
Bleecker Street is in Greenwich Village, and it's, you know, it was a cool little scene down there before it's all gentrified now, and everything that was cool became like a restaurant or a Duane Reade. But now, you know, that it's a completely different ball of wax. But back, you know, in the 90s, like, it was a pretty cool scene. Like the Spin Doctors came out of there, like Blues Traveler, all those type bands. And there was always somebody cool playing. You know, so all the bands were like pretty good when you went in. So it was an interesting time.
Did you rub elbows with those bands?
No, that was slightly right before me. But like most of the time we played at like Kenny's Castaway, so we would play like 12 to 4, which is a long. So, and there's all these bands before you. You never started at 12, so you'd get there to play at 12 and then sit till 1 usually, because everything's all backed up. And then by the time you start, but you play till 4 o'clock in the morning. And a lot of times it was somebody with a name that would come in, like, you know, that for whatever reason, just to hang. So it was always interesting.
This is back in the 90s.
Yeah, this is the late 90s, early 2000, like 2000 maybe.
Okay.
Pre 9/11. So just people from all over the world were there. So it was always like super duper interesting. Like somebody from Germany would come up and be like, will you sign this? And I'm like, for what? Oh, you were playing, right? And I'm like, okay, sure. Like, so I guess they thought anyone that's playing there is a name. So it was definitely interesting, and I'm glad that I did it at the time. I probably wouldn't want to do it now.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah, I understand that completely. I do, because the stuff you put up with. Yeah, there's certain things I won't put up with anymore.
Well, I don't want to do it. I don't want to play till 4 a.m. now. You know, again, and then go to work.
Yep.
So.
All right. So now let's segue. What I want to talk about next is, because you got your you went back to college.
Mm-hmm.
And you went for psychology. but realized that it was harder to get a psychology gig.
There wasn't a livable psychology gig, so I started substitute teaching because that was, you could do that pretty easily with what I had. So I was like, and I was working in a very tough area at the time. It was a real education in that respect as well. It was like crunching on crack vials kind of place as a, so I spent 5 years in Jersey City teaching. I finally got certified. I got a job down there. I was working with emotionally disturbed kids.
And the irony is, you were what kind of teacher?
There, when I started in Jersey City, I was teaching straight up emotionally disturbed kids. So I taught everything. Those were my kids for the day. And I had to teach them, I was supposed to kind of wrangle them in because these kids were behavior, issues. So I did that for, I guess, 4 or 5 years. And I was like, I gotta get out of this gig. This is going to kill me. So I moved up to a different place and I started teaching math. And I did that for 22 years. I taught math, which
you're talking about the music theory, like mathematics, and then
what made me awesome as a not awesome, but what made me okay as a math teacher was that I understood what it was like not to sit there and not get what it is that somebody's trying to show you, with like the numbers swimming around and stuff. So and there's ways around that. So I would get kids that they're like, I don't like math. I was like, I don't really like it either, but we got to do this. So let's sit down and let's get through this. So
as a teacher, you stinking at math growing up or having not a real big interest in it, that was a strength.
Total benefit.
A benefit.
My ineptitude worked out for me.
Yeah, same here.
So
same here. I'm a teacher, as you know, and if this was easy, I wouldn't. If what we do is easy, I wouldn't. I struggled with it. The stuff I'm teaching is the stuff I struggled with, and you know what I mean. So that's one of the things that makes I think it really helps to make a good teacher is if they struggled themselves.
Well, you have to understand what it's like to not get something, and you have to make a personal connection somehow with the kid. And sit there, and it's like if you just try and present information, just pure information, that's not going to work. Kids aren't interested in that, especially now. So you have to make a connection with the kid somehow, whether you're teaching guitar, whether you're teaching algebra, or whatever it is that you're trying to convey to a kid. You have to, make a connection with them some sort of way. Whether it's through you stinking at this as well, and now I don't stink, and I'll show you how to do that too. Or you like video games, I like video games too. You like music, I like music. Here, check this out. Whatever it is that you got to do, you do to make that happen.
Good at video games?
No, I haven't played. I used to be. I punched out when I ran out of time. I was like, I have to make a choice here, so I stopped. But I was a first-person shooter guy all day long.
All right. Okay. Okay. So after you were the math teacher, then what happens?
I needed a change. So this gig opened up where I work, and I applied for it and got it. And what it is a school to work program. So I get to teach kids life skills for a year. The kids are with me for like usually 2 or 3 years. So the first year I'm with them, we do life skills. After that, I find them a job in the community, and they go out, instead of going to class with me, they go to work, and then I go and check up on them and make sure that they're doing what it is, assuming there's no pandemic. So that's kind of, there's been a monkey wrench put in that plan, but that's how it's supposed to run. And I've only been there for 3 years. So when I got there, it was complete wreck. Nothing up and running. There'd been a sub there.
That to me was great.
So it was actually really good because I didn't have to follow anybody's anything. So I got there in January too. They had to replace me from my other job because I stayed in-house. So they're like, you have to wait until we find a replacement for you. So they didn't do that till January. So the kids had from September to January to do whatever they wanted. I walked in, there was some guy reading the paper. He's like, oh, great, you're here. He left. And then, there's no kids in the room because they're running around the hallway. So I had to wrangle everybody back in. There's no book. There's no curriculum. There's no nothing. So I started to put together, stuff to do. And my my outlook was, what can I show these kids that I wanted to know when I was their age, that nobody, things that people just don't learn. Some people pick them up, some people don't. And the people that don't pick them up, they have a harder time in life than the people that do. So let's start talking about some of that stuff. So like conflict resolution.
Yes.
Like that's the number one thing.
Okay, let's point this thing. Let's talk about musicians and all this stuff.
Well, if you play, we don't have to, you already know. So
yeah, I know, but it's like, this is like all this is what I call banding, but you're a math, you do this every day. This is your gig. Banding is all the you talk. This is your this is your story.
If you think about it, it has to do with whether you are a plumber, whether you are a work in an office, whether you play guitar professionally, whatever it is that you have to do, there's a set of skills of working with people that have nothing to do with what your skill is. Like if you are a guitar player, you have to do all this other stuff kind of well if you're going to be successful at it. Or if you're a plumber, it's the same list of stuff that everybody has to do well at. We don't teach it. We don't show anybody this stuff. You're just expected to learn this stuff on your own. So if you sit and think about it, like from a band perspective, what do you need to do to, besides play well? You got to play well. That's the baseline for things. You need to be able to be on time. You need to be sober, which we don't talk about in my class really, but that's one of the requirements. You have to be prepared if you're rehearsing. Don't show up and learn a tune on the spot unless you're like Mozart or something, and have an idea about what it is that you're supposed to do. You have to be able to talk to people. I'm the guy that goes in the room at the end of the night to get the band paid, so I have to have that end of things together. Yes. and to deal with conflict as far as that, because as you know as well as I do, sometimes people get amnesia about what they're supposed to hand you at the end of the night. So you have to be able to deal with that in a way that doesn't make things explode. Yeah. So this, and that list of skills doesn't change all that much when you go from guitar player.
One of the things also is how to think like a unit.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Teamwork.
How to think what is needed. Like I'm in this band, and how to think like a unit. Because some people are like, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do. This is what I want to do. But what happens is, but what is needed?
Well, we
do this. These are decisions we make all the time in a band situation. Mm-hmm. Be what is needed. Go ahead.
So, but all these things can be taught, and the way that you teach it is to talk about it before it actually happens, and maybe role play it a little bit. So, I mean, I don't talk about band stuff exclusively. Sometimes I bring it in. I'll bring in an example. I try to do an example every day of a problem that you might encounter. Let's practice it. Whether it's now we talk about like, what do you do if someone is standing too close to you and you're uncomfortable with it and they're not wearing a mask or something? We talk about stuff like that. But I've brought problems in the past, like this happened to me this weekend. How would you guys deal with this? What's the best way that I can deal with this to, number one, make this end the way I want it to end and not have people punching one another in their face before, we get there. Yeah, so
we try to not have that happen.
Yeah, no, that's bad. That's not good. I mean, it happens from time to time, but you try to avoid that. So, from what you do, I would be looking at something like, all right, so this guy doesn't want to play this part this way. You think it's awful. How are we going to come to an agreement on this without, number one, completely insulting somebody, and number two, like having everybody walk away and smile somehow. And that's not easily done, and it takes practice. Mm-hmm. You have to practice these things. So, and the same way that you would have to practice that for, a band, you have to do that for whatever it is that you're going to do. And as we all know, you don't have to be a special ed kid to be, we're all special in our own way. It's how functional are you? So my job is to make people functional. And I see dysfunction everywhere that I go. So, as well as I do, you have people that play fantastic. They play their ass off, and then they get in a gig, and then, You know, 3 months later, it's done, or they're fired, or the band is done. And then they do it again, and the same thing happens again. And then they do it again, and the same thing happens again. So if you sit and look, like, well, what are the skills that they don't have? Well, they don't have social skills. That's what it comes down to. So I think that all kids should be taught this, regardless of whether they're in my class or wherever. You know, every kid, every person needs to know how to get along with other people. You know how to do it intrinsically? Fantastic. If you don't, let's talk about it. And you might not realize, because not everyone is an intuitive kind of person, you might not realize that you're doing this or you're not doing this. So let's talk about some of the things that you need to realize about yourself.
Yes, that is wonderful. All that stuff is like, that is gold.
So the other thing that I'm trying to instill in kids is like goal setting. So, and this is great for playing, for musicians.
You were talking about meta-cognition and
oh yeah. So for me, like talking about learning. So my other job is to teach.
You didn't learn. You said yourself. You got a master's degree, and you didn't really know how to learn yet.
I didn't know how to learn yet. So, and the thing that taught me how to learn was cover gigs, like subbing for cover gigs, particularly like, hey, can you fill in? Sure, man. When is the gig? It's this Friday, and it's like Tuesday. And I'm like, what are you playing? Well, here's a set list, and you know, there's 35 tunes on them, and you know 6 of them. So now I gotta somehow make this happen by Friday because I said I would. And how am I going to do this? So you have to learn how to learn, and you know, everybody has their own way. There's no one way to do things, but you have to find your way. You got to write the user guide for your own brain and how you do stuff. Yes. So, and you do that by trying different things and failing and then adjusting. So that's what I try to instill in the kids that I have. And is the other thing that you need that goes hand in hand with that is goal setting. You got to set a realistic goal for yourself. And especially with playing, like, you know, you look at some of these Instagram kids and whatever that are playing this like amazing technical stuff and go, I want to do that. And you just start. Well, no, it doesn't really work like that. Yes. You have to take measured steps that are attainable in order to do that. Yes. And that's whether it's playing guitar or drums or bass or keyboards or whatever, or math. It's not all going to happen in one day. And it's not like, you know, the light bulb goes on and all of a sudden that you're brilliant at this. No, everyone who's really good at something worked really hard in order to do it.
One of the things that I always say, I reserve the right to stink at something, but I'm going to get better at it. Don't beat yourself up over, you don't have to be perfect, but I reserve the right to stink. So I'm not going to beat myself up over it. I'll get better at it. But with these stepwise goals, that
stinking is part of the process.
Yeah, it's part of the learning curve.
Yes, you have to stink at something in order to get better. Like you have to stink at this first before you can, you know, make a move and move on. And that's really important, stinking, because for me, for myself, stinking is my motivator. Like I don't want to stink at all. Like I never want to be terrible at something. Like when I go out to do it, of course, I'm going to be terrible the first couple times I try. But when I go to a gig, I don't want to do something poorly. And of course, you do from time to time. And someone's always there with the camera now to catch it. So that, you know, I mean, that is part of the process of learning is being not good at things. And you have to learn how to adjust when you're not good.
And the importance of being like, if you want to get better at something, and you want to shine, you want to find your wings, you got to be coachable too.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be coachable. It's like, admit it's not a weakness to, I don't know it all. And if you go into something thinking I know it all, that makes you not coachable. And it's like that you're only going to have it limited. There's going to be a roof to your progress because of your ego.
The longer that I go on doing things, the less I really feel like I know about anything. And it's, you know, I have my little pocket of things that I'm okay at, and the rest of it, I'm like, my God, like, you know, if you're like, wow, you know, just playing guitar, you know, I mean, you just barely scratched the surface of stuff. Like you get something down and then you realize there's like 40 more things that, you know, 40 million things that you can work on to get better at. And that's why I never run out of stuff to do. I get tired of doing stuff, but this whole pandemic, I've never been bored because I have all this stuff that I really, really, really need to work on. So,
Here's the big learning thing. I've been doing a lot of these interviews, and some of these players are ridiculous players. Like when I say ridiculous, back in the day, some of these people I've known for 30 years, some of these people I just met on the interview, but I've done I've done my research and checked the videos, and these were like guitar gods.
mhm,
And and what I'm seeing that I like is even the guitar god has mostly there goes that's a pool of people that are extremely humble,
mhm,
mostly because sometimes it's to the point where I don't deserve any praise, and that's horseshit.
yeah,
Okay, that's not right. But the fact that we don't see what we don't see the whole picture because we're too close to it. Does that make sense?
no, it makes total sense because you have your little pocket of things. Like I'm almost exclusively never happy with whatever it is that I did, and believe Eric was the same way. I'd be like, that was great. He'd be like, it sucks. Shut up. And now like a big part of the learning process for me was I bought a sound like a I guess an MP3 maker before cameras became were in everything. I started recording every gig for years, and like I would listen to that and go, that's not good, this is good, keep doing this, don't do this. And that was a big learning process for me. And and I think everybody that gigs should do that all the time. I still do it when I have something new. I put a camera up instead of just a sound recorder.
Yeah.
You need to continually check in and see what it is that you have going on and assess whether it's good, whether it's not good, and how you can improve. It is what it is that you're trying to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, question for you. Like saying COVID wasn't a thing. What is this is going to go back to what is the band like? In your neck of the woods in New Jersey, what's the competition like? Is,
It's a really nice community here. So, I mean, obviously, everybody wants the same gigs, but there's enough gigs going around that you can stay really busy if you want to. There's the group of people around that I see regularly. I try to go to jams as much as I can because that's where you check in and you see people and you network and I like that aspect of being part of a community and doing stuff like that. So it's really a healthy place around here. There's a ton of work. No, pre-COVID, I don't know what things are going to look like and what's going to be left when the dust settles.
yeah.
But I'm hoping we can get back. So I mean, and there's different pockets of places. Like there's one jam that's kind of like a fusion-y jam with the levels of players are pretty high, and you get your pros stopping there. We have a lot of like pros and ex-pros around here too because we're right outside the city. It's a little cheaper. So you have some like name type people around that live here.
Jam with any of those guys?
Huh?
Who did you ever jam with any of those kind of guys?
Yeah, everybody's super nice. Everybody's super approachable. Everybody, they're just
Reoccurring theme here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the same. We're all trying to do the same thing, which is get better and play music. So, and then there's like a more of like a hard rock jam. That's a different place. Like, and the crowds don't really commingle, but everybody that plays kind of. I try to support people, especially people that have shown me kindness and have showed up to my gigs. I try to repay that. So that's really important to me is to do that. And, just generally like not be a jerk.
Yeah.
Not be an a-hole. That's
right.
That's super important to me now. And, I'm sure when you were a kid, like, you're at your gig, you get the people standing, doing this, like, I never want to be that guy ever, like try to have like a supportive word for everybody.
I never play for musicians, and as a result, musicians come to see me.
Yeah, well,
I don't care if you're going to analyze my extended arpeggios over such and such a vamp, then those aren't the people I care about.
Oh, I don't care about that now.
As a result, I want to entertain. It's a fun time.
Well, I want to play music, not exercise.
That I really respect, they don't care about that either.
Yeah. So I want to play music, not exercises that, you know, are going to impress people, you know, and so that's the thing with going back to Jeff. That's the thing that like floored me as a way back when, is like he had absorbed all that and made music with stuff that was at times really technical, but it's like he had a musicality about him that was just fantastic. And that's what influenced, like I anymore, like I want to do things. I want to play the right part in the right place,
Yeah.
you know, and
Oh, yeah.
whether that's like
self-editing.
Yeah, whether it's, you know, one little thing or something else, whatever it may be, you know, that's what I would like to do at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm very happy to stand in the back, let somebody else shine out front. I'm totally cool being that guy in back, just getting it done, you know?
Yep.
So
thank you, Sean. This is wonderful. I'm sure that this is not the last time we'll speak.
I hope not.
I'm absolutely certain of this, because it's like there's stuff we need to talk about in front of a camera and behind the scenes.
I would love to come back anytime that you would like to have me. I would be more than happy to come back. And you know, let's hope that the world gets back to normal. We can get back to gigging. You can get back to in-person teaching.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this has been a joy. And I'm hoping it's given everybody a lot of stuff to think about, because from the banding, from the all the things that are not musical that we have to address.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is some takeaway stuff. So thank you so much. And as I said, with this we're gonna check in periodically with each other.
I would love that. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you to Jeff for recommending me. You know, this was an absolute pleasure to do, and I can't wait to watch your next one, because I see during the week that you've been cranking these out, man. So keep them coming.
I love it. Thank you so much.
Right. Be well. Be safe.
Yep.
Wash your hands. Wear your mask.
And kick ass.
Put on deodorant. All that good stuff. You know.
See you then.
All right. We'll talk soon.